What happens when a veteran in need is ignored by one of the world's most famous celebrities? This is the inspiring story of Walter Harris, a Vietnam veteran whose life took an unexpected turn after a single moment of rejection. With the help of a small act of kindness, Walter's journey sparked a movement that would change lives worldwide, and even made Snoop Dogg rethink everything. Stay tuned to witness the power of resilience, redemption, and how one man's story became a global force for good. On a cold, overcast morning in Los Angeles, Walter Harris, a 65-year-old Vietnam veteran, sat quietly on a bench outside a bustling shopping plaza. Walter's face bore the marks of hardship: weathered skin, a gray beard, and a distant look in his eyes. His modest sign, written on cardboard, read, "Veteran in Need. Anything helps." Walter had spent years struggling to rebuild his life after returning home from the war. Now homeless, he relied on the kindness of strangers to survive. Despite his circumstances, Walter always greeted passers-by with dignity and gratitude. One afternoon, as Walter sat quietly on the bench, a sleek black SUV pulled up in front of the plaza. Out stepped Snoop Dogg, flanked by his entourage. The crowd quickly noticed and began gathering around him, snapping photos and asking for autographs. As Snoop made his way toward the plaza, Walter called out to him. "Excuse me, sir," Walter said, his voice steady but humble. "Could you spare a moment to help a veteran?" Snoop paused briefly, looking Walter up and down. "Sorry, man," he said with a casual shrug. "I got places to be." With that, he walked away, leaving Walter sitting alone as the crowd dissipated. Walter watched Snoop disappear into the plaza, feeling a pang of disappointment. But instead of letting the rejection weigh him down, he tightened his coat against the chill and murmured to himself, "I'll get through this, like I always have." What neither of them realized was that a small act of kindness from an unexpected source would soon set off a chain of events that would change everything. The evening after his encounter with Snoop Dogg, Walter remained seated on the bench, watching the hustle of the plaza. Despite his rejection, he stayed hopeful. His military training had taught him resilience, and he was determined not to give up. As Walter adjusted his coat against the chill, a young woman named Maria Lopez, carrying a tote bag of groceries, noticed him. Maria, a social worker in her late 20s, was on her way home from work. She paused, looking at Walter's sign, and felt a pang of compassion. "Hi there," she said softly. "Have you eaten today?" Walter looked up, startled by her kindness. "Not much," he admitted. Maria handed him a sandwich and a bottle of water from her bag. "I'm sorry, it's not much," she said, sitting down beside him. "What's your story?" As they talked, Walter shared his journey. How he had served in Vietnam, returned home to a country that didn't understand him, and eventually lost everything. Maria listened intently, her heart breaking at his struggles. Maria couldn't stop thinking about Walter after their conversation. The next day, she posted his story on her social media, urging her followers to help. Her post read, "This is Walter Harris, a Vietnam veteran who's fallen on hard times. He's a kind, proud man who deserves so much more. Let's show him that people care. Any small act of kindness can make a difference." The post quickly went viral, with people from all over the city offering support. Some sent donations, others offered meals, and a few local organizations reached out to provide resources for Walter. Within days, Walter's life began to change. A local shelter offered him a temporary place to stay, and a veterans organization provided him with new clothes and a small stipend. Maria stayed by his side, helping him navigate the support system. One evening, as Walter sat in his new room at the shelter, he told Maria, "You've done more for me than I could have ever asked for. I don't know how to thank you." Maria smiled. "Just promise to keep going. Your story isn't over yet." Meanwhile, the viral post caught the attention of local news outlets, which began covering Walter's story. Unbeknownst to him, the buzz also reached the ears of someone who had once walked away, Snoop Dogg. Snoop sat in his studio, scrolling through social media when he stumbled upon Maria's post about Walter. "This is the guy I walked past," he murmured to himself, a pang of guilt hitting him. The viral post about Walter continued to spread, bringing more attention to his story. Among the many who saw it was Snoop Dogg, who couldn't shake the memory of walking past the veteran. Sitting in his recording studio late at night, he replayed the moment in his mind. "I could have done something," Snoop muttered, his voice heavy with regret. After a long pause, he grabbed his phone and called his publicist, Denise. "Find this guy for me. I need to make things right." Snoop reaches out. A week later, Maria and Walter were sitting outside the shelter when a sleek black SUV pulled up. Walter squinted, recognizing the vehicle. The door opened and Snoop Dogg stepped out, dressed casually but with his usual flair. Maria froze, unsure of what was happening, while Walter's face registered surprise. Snoop walked up to him, hands in his pockets. "Mr. Harris," Snoop began, his tone sincere, "I owe you an apology. I walked past you that day, and I didn't give you the respect you deserve. I saw your story, and I want to make it right." Walter, still processing, finally said, "It's never too late to do the right thing, son." The emotional conversation. Snoop sat down beside Walter, listening as a veteran shared his journey in more detail. Walter spoke about the struggles of reintegrating into society after the war, the mental and emotional toll it took, and how Maria's kindness had reignited his hope. "You're a fighter," Snoop said, visibly moved. "You've been through more than most people can imagine, and you're still standing. That's powerful." Maria watched the interaction, her heart warming at the unexpected connection forming between them. At the end of their conversation, Snoop said, "I want to do more than apologize. Let me help you get back on your feet." He pledged to fund housing for Walter and to support organizations that provide services for veterans like him. Walter's eyes glistened with gratitude. "Thank you," he said simply, shaking Snoop's hand firmly. As Snoop left the shelter, he turned to Maria and said, "You did something incredible for this man. How about we work together to do this for more veterans?" Maria hesitated, surprised by the offer. "You mean start something bigger?" Snoop nodded. "Let's make sure no one like Walter ever feels forgotten again." Snoop Dogg's words echoed in Maria's mind. "Let's make sure no one like Walter ever feels forgotten again." Inspired by the idea, she sat down with Snoop and Walter to discuss how they could turn their shared vision into reality. Together, they launched a program called Second Chance Heroes, a nationwide initiative aimed at helping veterans reintegrate into society. The program provided housing, mental health resources, job training, and community support. Snoop used his influence and platform to rally support from other celebrities, corporate sponsors, and government officials. Maria, with her background in social work, crafted a program structure that ensured veterans received the care and opportunities they deserved. Walter became the face of the initiative, sharing his story to inspire others and show what was possible with a little kindness. The inaugural Second Chance Heroes event took place in Los Angeles, featuring a resource fair for veterans and their families. It included workshops on financial literacy, career counseling, and even live performances to boost morale. Walter stood on stage, dressed in a new suit, addressing a crowd of hundreds. His voice was steady but emotional. "For years, I felt invisible, but because of Maria and the kindness of strangers, I've been given a second chance. And now, we're here to give that same chance to every veteran who needs it." Snoop followed, his charisma lighting up the room. "This ain't just about giving back. It's about making things right. These men and women fought for us, and it's time we fought for them." The audience erupted into applause, and donations began pouring in to support the cause. Within months, Second Chance Heroes had opened resource centers in 5 major cities, providing safe spaces for veterans to connect, heal, and rebuild their lives. Walter took a personal role in visiting the centers, meeting veterans, and encouraging them to share their stories. One veteran told him, "Hearing what you've been through gave me hope. If you can do it, So can I? Maria worked tirelessly to ensure the program's success, often collaborating with community leaders to expand services. Meanwhile, Snoop used his platform to keep the initiative in the public eye, hosting charity concerts and appearing on talk shows to promote the mission. One evening, after a particularly successful event, Snoop approached Walter and Maria with an ambitious idea. "We're making waves here in the U.S.," he said. "But what if we take this global? Veterans around the world could use this kind of support." Walter smiled. "I never thought I'd see the day when my story would inspire something like this." "Let's do it." Maria nodded, her determination shining through. "If we're going global, we'll need a bigger team and even more support." Snoop grinned. "Don't worry. I've got a few calls to make." The idea of expanding Second Chance Heroes to an international level was both exciting and overwhelming. Snoop Dogg, Maria, and Walter knew it would take significant planning, resources, and partnerships to make it happen. But they were determined to bring their mission to veterans worldwide. The global chapter of Second Chance Heroes kicked off with a summit in London, bringing together veterans, leaders, and organizations from over 30 countries. The venue was adorned with flags from around the world, and the event featured speeches, workshops, and performances designed to celebrate the resilience of veterans everywhere. Walter stood on stage, his voice steady and confident. "I once thought my story was just my own, but I've come to realize it represents so many others. Today, we're proving that no matter where you come from, a second chance is always possible." Snoop followed with his signature charisma, addressing the crowd. "We started this to help one man. Now, we're here to help the world. Veterans everywhere deserve our respect, support, and love. Let's make it happen." The audience, a mix of veterans, dignitaries, and supporters, erupted in applause, and the summit became a symbol of hope and unity. As Second Chance Heroes expanded globally, its impact was felt in profound ways. In Kenya, a center provided vocational training for veterans, helping many find work in local industries. In India, mental health workshops offered much-needed support to veterans dealing with PTSD. In Brazil, a community farm initiative gave veterans the chance to work the land and feed their families while rebuilding their lives. Walter traveled to many of these locations, meeting veterans and sharing his story. One man in South Africa told him, "Your journey gave me the courage to ask for help. Thank you for showing me it's never too late." Back in Los Angeles, the original Second Chance Heroes Center became a hub of activity, often hosting events to raise awareness and celebrate milestones. A mural of Walter, Maria, and Snoop was painted on the building, with the words, "Kindness changes everything," inscribed below. During a quiet moment at the center, Walter sat with Maria and Snoop, reflecting on how far they'd come. "I never imagined my life would lead to something like this," Walter said, his voice filled with emotion. Maria smiled. "You remind us every day why we started this." Snoop grinned. "And we're just getting started." Years later, Walter sat on the same bench outside the plaza where his journey began. This time, he wasn't alone. Several veterans joined him, laughing and chatting as they handed out pamphlets about Second Chance Heroes. Walter looked around, his heart full. As the camera panned out, the scene faded to a message on the screen. "In memory of Walter Harris and all the heroes who taught us that it's never too late to dream again." Walter's story reminds us that even the smallest act of kindness can spark a movement that changes lives. From a single bench in Los Angeles to a global initiative, Second Chance Heroes proves that no one is ever truly forgotten. What did you think of this powerful journey? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'll try to reply to as many as I can. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories like this one. See you in the next video.